This is the A to Z podcast. Expert insights on leadership, business, real estate, investing, and growth.
Welcome, everyone. Today I have a special guest. His name is Jeremy Beland. He is an off-market real estate expert. He has closed 450 deals, and also he is real estate investment freedom coach. Today he's gonna share with us his stories, his amazing story, the story that he has. It's gonna inspire you, challenge you, and stretch you. You're going to also share some insights, strategies, approaches that are going to help you, whether you are in real estate or not, whether you want to invest in real estate or not. Whatever you're going to get today from this conversation, it's going to help you. They are transferable to whichever industry you may be. Jeremy, thank you very much for coming here. I know your plate is full, but thank you for being here and giving us your time.
Yeah, no worries, my friend. It's an honor to be here, and I greatly appreciate the opportunity to talk to your audience. So this is awesome.
Let's start with your personal story. I remember sitting in the audience. You were the presenter downtown Tampa, and I was captivated. Your story, your origin story was amazing. I know we don't have a lot of time, but can you squeeze that story within 60 seconds? And would you please share that story?
I'll try to squeeze it in as much as I can. So basically, I came from, a very rough, I would say a very poor background. My mom had me out of wedlock. She was really young, and we were really poor growing up until she met my stepdad at the time. Then we had some life as lower middle class in the Northeast here of America. And then when I was about 13, 14, my stepfather at the time decided to take a shot at entrepreneurship. And in the process, he ended up losing everything. So as I was getting ready to go into high school, we basically lost, went through bankruptcy. Our house was foreclosed on, and we had our cars repossessed in the middle of the night. And obviously, it was a tough time for my family and a tough time for me as a child going into those tough teenage years. And, I went into a bad road, I should say, and just became a troubled youth. And then, ended up dropping out of high school at 15 years old, moved to 3 different high schools because we just kept bouncing around. By the time I dropped out my sophomore year, then I was, next thing you know, I'm in my early 20s as a high-rise window cleaner hanging off a skyscraper in Boston, making $24,000 a year, no credit, just living in a junky little apartment with a junk car. And a friend of mine who I was playing semi-pro football with basically said, "Hey, man, I think I have a job opportunity. You should consider it." And I said, "Well, anything's better than hanging off a skyscraper, being covered in pigeon poop all day in the cold and driving through Boston traffic every day from New Hampshire." So I ended up applying for the sales job, selling fax machines, copiers, and printers. I would have never thought I'd have a sales position. Matter of fact, I never even owned a tie in my life. I had to get my first tie just for this appointment. But they were desperate. They needed some bodies. So they gave me an opportunity, and I left one $24,000 a year job for another $24,000 a year job. And this was early in the 2000s, about, right around 9/11, around that time, 2000, 2001. And, but for me, it was, I was in an office every day. It was a new thing. I had a lot of upside, and I embraced it. And, fast forward a few years from there, I had some success with that company into another company, and end up getting married and having 2 kids. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, here I am in my 30s. I'm making 6 figures a year, and life is great. I have 2 little kids, a pool in the backyard, the epitome of a white picket fence, middle suburban America lifestyle, which for me as a kid growing up super poor was basically achieving all my dreams and goals financially. It was amazing to me. It was just, we had so much. But as I was getting ready to turn 33 years old, 34 years old, I was rocked by the Great Recession in 2008, 2009, 2010. That was more than just a housing crisis. It was also an employment crisis. Next thing I knew, I was out of work. And because I didn't go to finish high school and just got my GED, and because I didn't go to college, it made it really tough for me to find work at a time when everybody else was out of work, and everybody who was more educated and higher paid professional than me were all taking lesser paying jobs just so they could make ends meet. And really, it just kind of pushed me down this totem pole. to a point where I couldn't even find a job making like $30-something thousand a year. It was insane. There was nothing around. Meanwhile, I was losing my house because I couldn't afford to pay it. My wife at the time was still working. It barely kept us afloat, but we were struggling. Our house went upside down, $150,000 in equity in about a year and a half. There was no loan modifications. There was no refinance options. I mean, at that point in time, the only people getting bailed out were the banks. Every American was just SOL, and I was one of them. So, I spiraled into depression, became suicidal, and, I felt like a failure as a dad and a husband, saying, history is repeating itself. My family went through all this, and here I am doing it as an adult. How did I lose everything I had? I can't even provide for my kids who were 2 and 4 at the time. It was super devastating for me. And then I just started thinking about, well, I have to figure out a way out of this. I couldn't afford to go back to college, couldn't find a job anywhere. And I thought, well, I have this opportunity to maybe go into the Air Force. And I was either the Army and the Air Force, and somebody that I knew said, don't do the Army, do the Air Force. So I took their advice and went into the Air Force, and I was going to get a job selling network security stuff. I thought this would be recession proof. I could come out, learn network security, start selling firewalls and proxies to businesses. And that was my goal. But in order to get this free education from the government, I had to commit to 6 years as a reservist or National Guard. And I would have to leave my family for 6 months. But on top of that, I had to qualify for a top secret clearance. And I couldn't qualify for a top secret clearance if I went through bankruptcy and foreclosure. They will not allow you to do that. The government's just afraid that you're going to sell government secrets. So, I was learning about real estate at that time, started reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad and the Cash Flow Quadrant. And I was working with some studying from people like Peter Conti at the time. I was really starting to get into real estate investing until my whole world turned upside down, which seemed like overnight. But I knew enough that I said, hey, you know what? I'm going to reach out to a real estate investor and see if that real estate investor can help me. And that's what I did. And that's what he did. He actually came out, helped me short sale my house, prevented me from going to foreclosure and bankruptcy. And at 33, almost 34 years old, I ended up joining the military and went into basic training. It was actually 15 years ago as we speak. I was in basic training 15 years ago as we record this, getting ready to finish basic training. And, my nickname was Gramps because I was so much older than all the 17-year-old kids in there. But this gave me an opportunity to work on myself, get myself out of depression, build myself back up. And that's what I did. And, I went into the military, came back out. Unfortunately, we ended up getting divorced and then became a divorced dad of 2 young kids, started to build myself up to a sales job, got myself back to making 6 figures after a couple of years. And then as I started to approach 40, I started to feel very vulnerable again. And as I was approaching 40, I started to see more and more people in the 40s and 50s start to become replaceable with their W-2s and being let go when there were high income earners. And that scared me. I didn't want to be in a situation where maybe the company I was working for let me go or sold. And all of a sudden I was on the outside looking in again for like the 3rd time in my life. There had to be a different way. There had to be a better way. And I just felt that real estate investing was my way. I just didn't know where to start, and I just wanted to take things into my control. So I came across a podcast. I'm going to wrap this up real quick here. Tom Kroll, Wholesaling Inc., learned about wholesaling. The guy was magnetic, and it just spoke to me. And he had a coaching program that cost $5,000 to join, and then I would need some money to start the business from there. Didn't have any of that. So on my 40th birthday, I decided to sell my home. This was back in 2016. I had a condo that I lived in, a townhouse for 2 years with my kids. I decided to sell that. Then we downsized into a small little apartment and not such a great area. I took what little equity I had in my house, and I basically bought into this program and started my real estate journey with $11,000. It was all in. I burned the boats. If this didn't work, I was stuck in this apartment and I didn't know what to do. This was the only money I had was just the equity in this house. And I was giving it all away to start this. But that's what I did. And, I got my first deal in 90 days, made $5,000, went on to do 10 deals that first year at wholesaling, which is a specific niche in real estate investing, which made me generate about $73,000. The groundwork was done and built the foundation of a business, and I built it from there. And, a couple of years later, I quit my W-2, been a full-time investor since the beginning of 2020. And I'm approaching my 9th year here in this business, and we're approaching the 500 mark of off-market transition or off-market transactions we've done in multiple states. So that's where it all started. That's where I'm here today. It's an incredible journey. I would have never ever guessed, AZ, that the worst time in my life, the worst moment in my life as an adult, turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me, and it was.
An amazing story. I think somebody has to buy your story and make movie. I mean, this is an amazing
It's a little
story.
boring for that, but thank you.
No, you have had a lot of turning points. That's what I have seen from your story, which is initially you had bad start, but that didn't stop you. You turned around your life and you had a wonderful job, and then you hit by recession again. You reinvented yourself. You went to the military, you came back again, reinvented yourself, and you started real estate investing. It's amazing. Right now, I'm assuming that there are people who may be where you were when you were before you had six-figure job. Some people could be where you were when you were hit by a recession and you lost everything. Some people could be at a turning point where they are struggling to make a shift in their career, whether to join this industry or not. Or some people may be in a position where they are frustrated. They don't know how to break through. They have some resources, but they don't know how to experience what you experienced. For this kind of people watching this, what's your advice? What do you think, if you have like one, two, or three things that helped you to make all of these life transitions? You wouldn't be here if you didn't have those things. Would you please distill them into one, two, three things that helped you to make
Yeah,
these
I mean,
changes?
it's a great question, AZ. Obviously perseverance, right? You just have to push through challenging times. We're all going to get punched in the face. We're all going to get knocked down. We're all going to have these moments in life where we doubt ourselves, doubt our ability, doubt our future, question us, get really low, get really dark. It happens to all of us. And all you can do is just pick yourself up and keep moving forward, right? Keep moving forward. So for me, that's really just been a big part of everything in my life. I just, as depressed as I was at times and wanted to give up, I just, maybe it was because I had my children. Maybe it's because I just wanted more. I just kept moving forward. And, I'm also afraid of what it's like to be poor and broke, because I've been there so many times, right? So that's definitely a motivating factor. I'd rather hit that knowing that I tried everything rather than, leave it up for chance that it may not happen and, or have somebody else have control of that. So perseverance, I think, is a big one, just overcoming fear or, facing fear. I think no matter what you do, when you're making life changes, it is scary, and you have to have that ability to just navigate that fear and just work towards your goal. It does require a lot of effort, a lot of hard work. There's no shortcuts to success. There's no easy way to success. It is hard work. It is scary. There's a lot of gut check moments, right? And you have to get knocked down and pick yourself back up. That's just the way it is. And then the other thing that I see a lot specifically when it comes to real estate is just analysis paralysis. Everybody wants to create the perfect scenario, the perfect situation, the perfect deal, but perfection doesn't really exist. It's great to strive for, but it just doesn't exist. And I've seen analysis paralysis because people are afraid of making a mistake or afraid of failing, kill more dreams than any bad mistake in real estate could ever do. So, again, analysis paralysis is a deal killer for many people, or a dream killer. You got to take massive imperfect action, just keep moving forward, face adversity, pick yourself up, move forward with it. And if and when you can, I strongly, strongly, strongly suggest you find a mentor or a coach of some sort, regardless of what you want to get into. My success, as much as it's come from having a great team that works for me, my ability to just keep moving forward. But a lot of it has come because I've invested into mentorship and coaching. Ever since that first coaching program, I've never stopped investing into coaching and mentorship. Even 9 years later, I still do. And I have for my team. And that's been a big part of our success because they've taught us to avoid costly mistakes. They've shortcut our road to success. And we all have blind spots, and it's wonderful for somebody objectively to look at them to help you grow. And also when you're afraid, to talk to somebody who's been through it before that can help you navigate those fears. So those are my suggestions.
These are really great tips for a lot of people to come out of whatever situation they may be. I want to dive deep to talk about discipline, reinvention, resilience, but I want to touch a little bit about mentoring. I have two mentors right now as I made a shift from leadership trainer, coach, and consultant to commercial real estate and business brokerage. Someone helping me to make a transition to business brokerage, and someone is helping me to transition to commercial real estate. They have decades of experience, and they're generous enough to mentor me, to coach me, and guide me. And I know the importance of mentoring. I want to mention a good example, because when people think about mentoring or coaching, they don't see the value. And I'm going to give an example. Yesterday, I was on YouTube and I watched a clip about Grant Cardone. He was saying that Alex Hermosi, who is now a multi-millionaire, hundreds of $1,000,000, he paid him around $100,025 for an hour. $125 an hour to get mentoring from someone who was ahead of him. Somebody may not need to invest that much money, but whatever money they have, like you did, you had that $5,000, and I'm sure it cut years of efforts from you, a lot of mistakes, headaches down the road because of that 5,000 investment. Some people may not have $5,000 right now. Sometimes people, they come to me and they want to speak like a pro in front of the camera, and I give them a program. And they look at the money and they say, oh my gosh, I don't have that money. But I tell them, look, if you get this coaching, mentoring program, you make it like 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. How much is that worth for you? Would you please give us some benefits of having a mentor? You already mentioned, but I want you to, if you have more examples, or it could be from your personal example or any other examples, how much mentoring is important and how much people need to dare to invest to get coaching and mentoring.
Yeah, so there's obviously going to be some people out there who just never see the value in coaching or mentorship. And, honestly, from my experience, very few of them will ever succeed, right? Great athletes, great actors, actresses, singers, songwriters, they all have some kind of coaches and mentorships. I mean, Tiger Woods was the greatest golfer in the world, and he had a swing coach, right? We all need to get better by having somebody that can help us get better. But some people just don't see the value in it. And and not to be cold, very few of them will succeed because they're never going to, put in they're never going to find the value in it. It's almost like the story of a plumber comes to your house and does a small little fix, and he says that'll be $250, and you're like, the homeowner is like, dude, you were here for 15 minutes. How can that be $250? He's like, you're not paying me for my 15 minutes in time. You're paying for me for my years of knowledge, experience, and education that I've already invested in, that I can come out here and fix it in 15 minutes. I've earned the right to charge you $250 for 15 minutes. Alex Hormozi has earned the right to charge $125,000 for an hour, even to somebody as wonderful and experienced as Grant Cardone, because he's going to take that $125,000 and probably get some 10, 20, 30x return on that investment, right? So if you believe in yourself,
just a quick, maybe I didn't communicate well. It was the reverse.
Oh, reverse. All right. Well,
yeah.
Even Alex, right?
Alex Hermosi. It was some years back. He was not where he is today.
And look where he is today.
Exactly. That was the point I was trying to make. He paid $125,000 per hour to have a conversation with Grant Cardone, who was ahead of him back then. Look at where Alex is today. People look at him right now. For example, last weekend, he launched his book, and he earned like $300 something million or $100 million during the weekend. People look at that and assume that he just got lucky. Maybe he has something that they don't know, some secret. But if you think about it, he has been investing on himself and getting coaching and mentoring people who were ahead of him.
Yep, yep. And and there's a lot of us, myself included, AZ, who had no money for coaching. I sold my freaking house to get it, right? That's how important it was to me. If it's important enough to you, you'll find a way to do it, right? I have a 22-year-old daughter. I spent some time on the phone with her last night. She just started her corporate America job. She makes really good money, graduated from a college, and I want to be a power CEO someday. But while she's doing this, she's hustling by walking dogs for people, feeding cats. She's selling stuff on Marketplace. She's got all these little hustles here and there, and she's making an extra $500 here, $600, $200, $100, right? And she did this her senior year of high school, and as a senior in high school, she saved $10,000. If a senior in high school can have these little gigs and hustle their way to make $5,000 to $10,000, any adult can do it too. And I'm telling you, stop watching Netflix, stop playing video games, and figure out how you can make a few bucks on the side. Then save that money and invest it into your coaching or your dream or whatever it is. And I tell you, once you work that hard to pull up some extra cash and invest it, you're going to see it through. It's the people who don't want to spend any money or time or anything that don't really follow it through because they got nothing else to lose, right? They don't have any skin in the game. They don't have any emotional or physical or financial investment into this. It's just like, I'm going to give it a shot. I'll dip my toes in it. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, no harm, no foul. But when you dip your whole body into that cold water because you really want to see improvement, you're committed. So I feel like if there's a will, there's a way. And I think the benefits from coaching, you got to stop thinking of it as a lot of money that it may not work. I think of it as, what will be my return on that investment, right? That $5,000 made me $73,000 that first year, right? So just from year one, I made what's that, 12, 14 to 1 return on my $5,000 in just year one. But as I stand here today, that value is infinite because it taught me how to wholesale my first house, which I've gone on to do so many times over. That if it wasn't for that coaching, I wouldn't be looking at $12 million in profits in the 9 years that I did business. It all started there. Now, obviously, I've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars more in ongoing coaching to get me to these next levels, right? I have to keep leveling up, because if you're not growing, you're dying. And if you get to a point where you don't know how to get better, you need to invest into somebody who can teach you to get to the next level. And I can tell you right now, growing pains come with it, but that's how you get the best out of yourself.
I love it. If you're not growing, you're dying. And thank you for sharing that. I want to ask one of your transitions, because you were in the military and then now you are entrepreneur. I want to know the kind of values that you learned from the military, such as adaptability, discipline, and resilience. How much those things helped you in your efforts to become a world-class entrepreneur? Just the question is, all of these that you have today, adaptability, discipline, and resilience, were they developed when you were in the military, or were they developed after the military?
I would say they were there before, because I've always been into health and fitness since I became an early adult. And I think health and fitness has been more of a catalyst for my success than I would say the military has, because of the discipline that it takes to eat healthy and exercise consistently to yield results. The military for me, was a different situation because I was 33 into 34. I was older when I went into it. I wish I did it when I was younger, but it didn't happen for that reason. For me, it was a way for me to be selfishly working on myself and to rebuild myself. I was in a really dark place going in, and it allowed me to just not have the distractions of bills and finances, and even my family at home, as terrible as that sounds. I needed to just go away and work on myself. And I went away for the 6 months, and I came back missing my kids more than I could ever imagine. But the discipline definitely, it helped me bring in more discipline. But I'll tell you what it really made me realize, AZ, is that, there's a lot of people who serve our country, and they're all amazing, by the way. I've met so many great people in the military, and I have nothing but the utmost respect for anybody in the military. But these people sacrifice not just their lives like in war and stuff like that, but I mean their lives to serve our country, whether they're raising families and bouncing around the world, leaving their families for long periods of time as they're on tours and stuff overseas and things of that nature when they get deployed. And they're doing it for low money, right? They're doing it for like really low annual pay. And these guys are and women are just killing themselves. And what I realized is, the military is, it can be boring at times, but it's hard. And that comes with a lot of sacrifice and it's very noble. But it made me realize that wasn't for me either. There has to be a better way to make money and a way to live my life. I don't mind taking orders from people, but I didn't want to be in a position where I was taking orders from people the rest of my life for what would be a retirement. And basically everybody I know in the military who's retired had to go on and take on another job because the retirement didn't pay, even though they paid 30 years of their life into the military. So, it made me just realize that you can't depend on anybody. You really, if you want a life on your terms, you want to build financial freedom, time freedom, and build a lifestyle for yourself and a legacy for your children, you need to take control of your own life. You can't do it with anybody or anything. Very few people work for somebody else and achieve those goals, military included.
Yeah, I know some of my colleagues, they want their children first to go to the military before they start entrepreneurship. One of the reasons is they want them to develop discipline, resilience, and also accountability. They send them.
I agree with that strategy. I like that strategy.
In your case, you developed that before you even went to the military. Can you give us a couple of tips? Because sometimes people, when I tell them that they have to show some discipline, they push back. I'm not like that. I'm, laid back, and I don't see the point at this point for me to be disciplined, to reinvent myself, or to show resilience. Hey, I just want to roll. I don't need to do anything. Part of the reason is they see people who developed discipline and they don't want to be like them. But my point always to them is that it's less than you think to develop those disciplines, resilience, and reinventions. It's not hard work. If you know how to develop this discipline, such as, for example, developing a habit. If you don't like, for example, get up early morning, if you just make it a habit for just 3 weeks, getting up early using alarm, after that, you cannot even walk a day without having that early morning energy and momentum. What's your advice? Because people don't want to change where they are. They want to go somewhere. They have a vision. They want to transform their lives. I never met anyone who doesn't want to be successful or better or change their lives, their family lives, their business, entrepreneurship. But the challenge is making that shift, making a change to develop this discipline, adaptability, and resilience. What are some of the things that you learned from your own life that could help people who are on the fence on this?
Let me kind of use this analogy. It's a little strange, but I think it'll kind of tie it all together, right? So let's just say you want to run a marathon, right? Running a marathon is hard. Running is easy, right? But what's harder than running a marathon is the discipline to consistently train for a marathon every single day. When you don't feel like it, you don't want to, life has other things happening to you, you're sick, whatever the situation is, you have to find a way to keep putting in the work and effort. That's where it becomes hard. And also, when you're putting in running miles every day and you're by yourself and nobody's watching you, it's boring, it's lonely. But a lot of entrepreneurship and success, that's exactly what it is. It's boring, it's lonely, it's doing the things every day when you don't want to do it. And results don't happen overnight. Because you do this for a week doesn't mean you can run a marathon. Because you do it for a month doesn't mean you can run a marathon. It may take you many, many months of doing this before you even can finish a marathon. Never mind if you want to compete a marathon at a high level or high speed, which could take you years of discipline and training and everything else, right? So, I think we live in a world of instant gratification. And this is why you always see like that second and third Friday of every New Year's where everybody is already done with their New Year's resolutions because they're not getting results fast enough. And, in entrepreneurship, real estate, and everything else, results take time. It's really the compound effect of doing boring, monotonous things and having the discipline to do them every single day, whether you want to or not. The compound effect over time continues to yield more and more results and more success. So, it's not incredibly hard to run. It's not incredibly hard not to eat a cupcake. It's not incredibly hard to go to the gym, in the morning or get up early and go. But it's hard to do it consistently every single day when you don't see results. But people are too short-sighted, in my opinion. And, I've been guilty of that myself. Everything is just, you have to look at it as a journey. And if you want to be better, you need to do better. You need to be better. You can't do better. You can't achieve better without you being a better version of yourself. So I'm a big believer in constant self-development and personal development. I'm constantly, even as I approach 50 here, I still work hard every day to become a better version of myself because my goals continue to grow. My dreams continue to grow. And in order to achieve those, I need to continue to work harder at being a better person. It requires me to take the self-discipline to do boring little things every single day, even when I don't feel like it. But listen, nobody ever went to the gym when they were tired in the morning and said, man, I wish I slept in. Nobody skipped eating cupcakes for a week and lost that 5 pounds in a month and said, man, I wish I ate all those cupcakes, right? You may say that in the moment beforehand, but you'll never have that regret after. What you regret after is not putting in the time and effort to make those dreams a reality. And life goes by too quick not to.
Powerful. This is something we do it on a daily basis. We may not like it. It may be boring. The idea is we want to improve ourselves and we want to become better. And there is no shortcut. We have to have discipline, consistency, resilience, especially now. Things are toughened up. In the past, for example, you can have a business and it could profit. You can have a profession and you could have your job until retirement. What we see now, especially the coming picture of AI, if you are not disciplined and if you're not inventing yourself constantly, what happens is that you find yourself out of business, out of job, and you become irrelevant. Which one is better? Is it hard to be better, grow, resilient, disciplined, and keep on growing and become better, or just let it go and then face the consequences? And sometimes the consequences are not good. I want to talk about your stage performance. I sat there, I saw you, how you performed. You had credibility, authenticity. I remember you were making eye contact with me and eye contact with everybody else. From the stage, I could see that you are a great speaker. What I want to know is, how did you develop this ability to communicate on the stage and in front of the camera, serving people around the country, traveling, presenting, coaching people? Can you tell us some tips on how to become a speaker like a pro?
Well, I appreciate the kind words. Like anything else, there was a lot of hard work that went in behind the scenes to get better at speaking. When I first started speaking, getting up in front of everybody was not a big deal for me. I'm not one of those people who's afraid of getting in front of the classroom to speak. But what I was doing was okay, I was getting the message across, but I wasn't really, really relating to the audience. So what I was doing, I was recording every time I went on stage. And then I went back and I also had my wife with me, and we talk about what things that I did good, what things that I didn't do good. And as we started to do that, we started to meet other people that were hosting these events that had great speakers, or I met with people who were speaking and I started asking them what things I could do. Right. So it took me a lot of reps, right? I did a lot of things, and every time I did a presentation like the one you were at, there was things that I could improve on. I would take those 1 or 2, 3 things and improve it on the next one and keep doing that, eliminate things. So my presentation, I was constantly changing it and fine tuning it from one location to the next week, even if it was a few days later or a week later. I was constantly seeking guidance of people who were there that had more experience than me, or people that I knew that could provide me more guidance on how to get better, like eye contact, talking to people, not just standing in front of the room, making sure that I walk through the room, make sure I talk to different people, make sure that I ask them to ask questions, to engage in dialogue, not waiting for the silence and hoping somebody who's afraid to raise their hand speak. So the reality is, man, it was a lot of hard work, and it was just me constantly practicing to get better, like everything else I do in life. And if you saw me, what time you saw me, and you saw me a couple years earlier at my first time, it was night and day. But again, nothing happens overnight, right? It took me a couple years of getting up there, putting in the work in behind the scenes, keep redoing my presentation, improving my stage performance, improving the things that I say and don't say. That's all it was. Consistent hard work. Again, like anything else, I put in the effort and put in the time, and over time it yielded results.
I love it. These practices are like yourself, me. When I started, I remember I was not making eye contact. I was not smiling. I was standing there talking to people. I was not connecting. In most cases, I was communicating at the intellectual level. I was not connecting at people's mind and heart level. And one thing you mentioned, which I have done, and I want to emphasize that one, which is about you self-critiquing yourself. I found that very powerful, because one of the reasons people may not see improvement in their presentations is they may not be able to see their blind spots. They keep on speaking, but they never take videos or ask somebody to take their videos, sit down, if possible, with someone who has a better speaking skills, to sit down there and self-critique that. Powerful. But for a lot of people, self-critiquing is a little bit hard for them. They don't mind to critique other people, but self-criticism is a little bit hard for them. But I encourage my coaches, my audience, when I facilitate public presentation workshops. One thing I want to learn a little bit from you is about storytelling. When you look at people, when they share stories, it looks like they're just reporting it. Like, I was there, I saw this, I've done this. It's kind of reporting. Nobody's going to be connected with reporting. In your case, you were creating context and taking people to where you were, both backing it up with your gestures, your facial expressions, and your voice. Can you tell us how you developed this storytelling?
Again, I think it's just improving my craft over time. For me, I know people can relate to my story because they all have a story that feels similar to that. So getting them to feel the emotion, feeling what it feels like to be in that time, is a lot different than having somebody just talk to you about it. So, for me, it was just like I really wanted to explain the situation, explain how I felt, which meant a lot of times just being very vulnerable and very transparent, right? And not putting on some kind of, disguise or bravado, right? Just really just kind of showing how it is and how it was. But we've all can relate because we've all had that type of adversity. So getting people to walk through my story and through my shoes kind of can put it all into perspective, and then they can start relating it to their own journey and their own challenges. And I want people to believe that, hey, if he can do it, I can do it too, which sounds so cliche, but it's really true. And I'm sorry I keep moving around. My battery looks like it's dying and my laptop's charged, plugged in. I'm just a little confused what's going on. So if you see me moving around, I'm trying to get my laptop not to die. So I apologize.
Don't worry. That's okay. One thing I want to emphasize from what you said is about vulnerability. I remember me getting coaching from one experienced trainer, and he was watching me, and I was sharing stories. One day he pulled me aside and told me that, AZ, why should you always talk about your success? Why should you always act like you are a superhuman? Why don't you be vulnerable? Why don't you share also their stumblings, failures, and so on? That was a turning point. From my perspective, my thinking was, when I share stories, these stories should be instructional, things that I have done and succeeded. But what he showed me, my mentor showed me that, look, They want to know whether you are human like them, whether you have struggles, failures. If you don't show them that, you are acting like you're a superhuman and they don't connect with you. And if they don't connect with you, they don't listen to you. And I'm glad that you mentioned about
Yeah.
vulnerability. Let's talk about,
Yeah. AZ. And that's one of the
yes.
things oh, I'm sorry. I think I'm lagging a little bit, and that's one of the things that made me very hesitant, because what I found was that a lot of people in the coaching business, they just show how awesome they are and how great they're doing. And success is a way to attract attention and to motivate others. But I also feel like you have to be realistic and say, hey, I make mistakes. I screwed up. I still do this. I can still be humbled. I can still learn. People relate just as much as they do success. So I think authentic, in addition that you're flawed, can go a long way.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. That's powerful for speakers, especially if they want to connect with the audience and share stories. I want to talk about, we are kind of like 20 minutes left, and I want to make sure that we cover some of the discussion points we identified. And one of them is about scaling. Of course, you scaled your personality from tiny apartment to $10 million net worth. This is not easy. Starting from one deal, you scaled it to more than 450 deals. And also you created your companies and you scaled them. One thing that I have seen, including in my community, I see companies that are earning, let's say, $100,000, $200,000. These are really great businesses, the small mom and pop businesses, but I don't see a lot of scaling. And I was researching and asking people, why do you think many entrepreneurs cap themselves? Why don't they scale? And I studied this, and it started with my own journey, because I remember 2018, I went to Ethiopia back home for a vacation. And that's when I realized I didn't scale. I was too dependent on myself, because when I am away from my business, when I'm not coaching, training, money was not coming. And I realized that I didn't have a business, I had a job. And that's when I start to study about scaling. I want to use this opportunity to ask you, when did you got this idea about scaling, and what are some of the vehicles that you use to scale yourself and also scale your companies, and what are the challenges around scaling? Because if there were no challenges, everybody would have scaled, and that's not the case everywhere around the world. Would you give us your take on this one? What it takes to scale, what are some of the vehicles you used, and also what are the challenges to overcome?
First, I would read the book Who Not How. It's a great book that teaches you how to leverage other people's time, money, and efforts, so you don't have to do everything, right? It's not how you're going to do it, it's who can do it for you. So your ability to get people to use their time, money, and energy and efforts on your behalf of a goal is the way to scale. And listen, scaling is not easy. It's hard, like anything else. It is hard, and what I found in life is that scaling, there's different levels of scaling, right? And you can scale to anything you want. But scaling, when you're growing, it's hard to scale and grow and be profitable at the same time, especially in my industry in real estate. I found that it's a lot like keeping up with the Joneses, right? Everybody's scaling, wants to grow bigger, 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 and you can easily find yourself in that situation where you're trying to keep up with them and feeling like you need to grow and continue to do that as well. And sometimes it's not in your best interest, and you may lose money in the process. So I've scaled in different markets and scaled in size. And, I've scaled back as I stand here today. I find that less is more. As I'm getting older, my time is more valuable than trying to just grow and have this big, massive business. But with that being said, I can't do this alone. I do have a team in place, and I have great team members. And typically you need to have a team to do it yourself, or you do have a job, right? If I can go away for a vacation for a few weeks or longer, my business will still run without me. That is a great feeling to have. If you can't do that, then you have a job. And that's okay. Sometimes working for yourself is still better than working for the man, but to each your own. But if you want to scale, you get some mentorship, read some books about it, and learn how to grow. Be patient with it. And remember, it's hard to scale and remain profitable at the same time. And make sure you're scaling the right positions. Typically, the best thing to do is to delegate the things that you don't like to do and the things that you're not good at first, and keep you in the position of doing the things that you enjoy doing and the things that you're good at longest before you start to delegate those.
I'm glad you brought up a couple of important points. I want to dive a little bit deeper. One thing you mentioned, which is very powerful, is just don't scale for the sake of scaling. If scaling is not your goal, don't scale it. And also, if you scale it, it has to be profitable. And you're right. I have seen organizations that scale, but they didn't have any margin. That's not the case. But I want to ask you follow-up questions. One thing that I see when I have this conversation with people about scaling is they tell me that, AZ, this business, this is my hobby. I love what I do. I don't want to scale. I don't want to work with others. My pushback is always, I want to hear yours. My pushback is always, look, whenever you have a business, entrepreneurship, one thing you have to know that something may force you to quit, or you may need to sell it. You may have health crisis, or you have a partner and you separate, and so on, which all of these may force you to sell your business. And therefore, if you didn't create your company and make it scalable, even if that's not your goal, and when the time comes, it may come, and you have to sell it and exit, you couldn't get the money you deserve. And therefore, making your company scalable, even if you don't want to have a big business, is profitable, whether you want to stay with the business or whether you want to walk away. Tell us a little bit about how can people make their companies, their teams scalable?
Well, I mean, I don't know how it relates to other businesses, right? I'm just a real estate investor who has a house buying business and coaching business. So, getting a business to sell, I mean, obviously you have to be in a position where the business can continue to be run and be profitable without you in order to sell it. I'm a big believer in making sure that your business serves you and you don't serve your business. So we want to create a business that creates the lifestyle that serves us and our dreams and our goals and the lifestyle that we try to achieve. If your goal is to sell it at some point, then, you need to make sure that, they don't need you in order to be profitable within the business, right? You have to be replaceable in order for the business to continue to grow. So I don't really know if I can answer that question because I am not a master at scaling and growing businesses to sell. I haven't sold any businesses, and I don't know if I will sell any businesses. It's just not my forte. But, like anything else, if that was something I wanted to do, I would hire a coach that specialized in that, and I would have them train me and teach me what I needed to do and implement to make that dream a reality.
Yeah, you actually answered the question, because my question was how to scale your business, and you scaled your companies because the companies that you have, they are independent of you. And the key factor
Right.
in scaling is making your company, your team, independent of you. Actually, when investors want to buy a business, the first question they ask is, who's your second man or woman? If you
Right.
don't have somebody who could substitute you, because if your car hits you and die, if something happens to you, their investment could go to the drain. They don't want that to happen. And that's the first question they ask. And therefore, my suggestion to any entrepreneur is, if you don't want to become big, that's fine, but at least make sure that your business is independent of you. With the time that we have, I want to talk about one of your approach, which is I coach, I serve with empathy. Would you please expand on that one?
Yeah. So, when it comes to house buying, it's much more than just putting out a bunch of lowball offers, as a lot of people say. We're as an investors tend to have a somewhat of a negative connotation and preconceived notions of how they really are. But when you're looking to succeed in working at a high level with house buying, being successful in it, you really need to be in the people helping business. I am much more about serving the sellers than I am about actually buying the houses and flipping them for profit in however I do that. The real estate investor that saved me from foreclosure and bankruptcy, he came from a place of empathy. He could relate to what I was going through. He provided certainty, right? So a lot of the people that we work with today and have in this business are people that are going through hard times. What I always like to say, we're always 1 or 2 life decisions or 1 or 2 life choices from hitting rock bottom. And some of us have already been there, like myself. Some of us haven't, but any of us could be at any given time. And good people fall on hard times and they need a reset button in life. And sometimes they don't know how to get out of it. And as real estate investors, we have that ability to do that. But with that, they're going through some, struggles. They may be depressed. They may be stressed. They may be irrational. And you have to be coming from a place of empathy. So in our coaching program, we're all about, being very transparent, coming from a place of empathy, providing value, being problem solvers, right? We want to tailor a customized solution for each and every seller for their unique problem in exchange for equity in their home. And that requires a lot of work. And I'll tell you, a lot of investors don't want to deal with that at all. They'd rather just do things a different way. But that's how we do it within my businesses. And that's what we teach in our coaching program.
I'm glad you brought this up about how some investors and also leaders in the real estate industry, they don't want to deal with empathy. And I sometimes see that people push back whenever I tell them you have to be in this intersection point where you make people accountable, but at the same time you show empathy. One pushback, which I want to hear from you, one pushback people from real estate, because it's a highly competitive, cutthroat kind of industry, and people always focus on numbers, profits, results. And whenever I ask them to show empathy, they always push back. Look, you cannot survive and exist in this business if you don't have results. Empathy is at home. Empathy is in charitable organizations out there, in church and nonprofit, not here in profit making. How do you reconcile that? What do you say to these people who are pushing back, saying that in real estate, in for-profit industry, you cannot show empathy?
Yeah, I'm not sure why you can't have both. In our business model, you definitely need to have both to be successful. If you don't want to come from a place of empathy, then you need to find a niche in the real estate world that would allow you to do that without empathy, right? Maybe you buy, huge multifamily apartment buildings where you do syndications and partner up with people. And that's more of a transaction than more of solving a problem with a distressed seller. There's probably some niches that you could do that would allow you to be profitable and not do that. It's just not my business model. In my business model, because we get properties direct from seller, and these sellers are usually distressed in some way, we have to come from a place of empathy. So it's about all I can say on that.
Yeah, you mentioned about, I want to ask you a follow-up question. You mentioned about it's possible to balance. In your case, how do you inspire someone, maybe they don't have the passion or the vision or the ambition to go to the next level? You have to push them, you have to make them accountable, but at the same time you show empathy. Can you give us an example where how you motivate this kind of situations where somebody they don't have the passion, don't have the ambition, or they don't have the resilience to go to the next level, and as a coach and as a leader you want to take them to the next level? How do you do that while you are still maintaining empathy?
Well, it's on a case by case basis, right? My goal is obviously try to hold people accountable and help them achieve the results. But at the end of the day, they have to find the motivation within, right? And more or less the discipline within, right? Motivation is only going to carry you so far. Discipline, hence what I have this thing behind me. If you can read it, discipline is everything, right? So I can't force somebody to be disciplined, but I can share with them the results of being disciplined. I can share them the results of not being disciplined by my own history and my experiences with others. So, I try to be understanding and empathetic because I know what it's like to work a full-time job and build a real estate business on the side. I know what it's like to make a mistake in this business. I know what it's like to expect this deal to close and in the 11th hour it doesn't and you're devastated, right? I understand all those things because I've been through them all, right? That's what's great about having a coach is when you have a coach and a mentor who's been through it all before, they understand all the ups and downs that comes along with it, and having that ability to share that with somebody makes them feel like, hey, listen, you're not alone, man. Dude, I went through that exact situation. Here's what I learned. This is what I did to fix it. And this is what I would do again if I did it. And this is what I'm telling you from my experience. So that's how I would handle that.
I love it. I love it. I love the story part. When people know that you were in their shoe and when they realize that you understand from where they're coming from, even if you push them, stretch them, they understand that. But if you take a position where, why are you lazy? Why don't you have ambition? Why don't you outperform? They're gonna resent. They don't see that you don't understand their situation. I love that. Before we close in the next couple of minutes, is there anything that we missed? Something you think gonna empower people to go to the next level? Anything that helped your coaches and people who work with you?
Here's 3 things I always like to leave everybody with, right? Always be marketing, always be learning, and more importantly, always be taking massive and perfect action. If you can put all 3 of those together and have the discipline to be consistent with it, great things will happen.
Any last comment in terms of where people can find you, or if you have any available programs, resources that people could be able to find more about what you do and what you have?
Yeah, thanks, AZ. One thing I would do is I would recommend /gift, reifreedom.com/gift. There is a free ebook that you can download if you choose to. It's how to get more deals, bigger deals with less cancellations when it comes to off-market acquisitions. It's a lot of what I talked to you about that time in my presentation in Tampa, but it's much more detailed. So this is a free ebook that you can get, implement it into your business. It will teach you things like empathy and providing certainty and a lot of other things that will be very applicable in your business as acquiring off-market deals. If you're not into off-market acquisitions, this isn't the gift for you. But other than that, you find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, Jeremy Beland or REI Freedom, any of these things that you see right here. You can find me on there. I'm always feel free to reach out, talk to me and ask me questions. I'm always happy to pay it forward. I've been very blessed in this life with this business. And all I ever want to do is kind of help people, help others, and build a life of freedom doing what I get to do every day, which is just a blessing.
Thank you very much, Jeremy, for coming and sharing your story and a lot of insights, tips, and also for the resources that you offered. I encourage everyone who's watching right now to go to his website, get the ebook, learn more about his events and programs that he provides. If you have any question, comments, suggestions to the program so that we bring you other guests and talk about the topics that are very important to you, please reach out. Until I see you next time, have a great day. Thank you for watching.